Hello students, welcome all of you. Today we are going to discuss about a very important topic which plays a vital role in our daily activities. Let it be a simple activity or it's a complex activity, our topic plays a very important role. Before I declare the topic, let me take two simple examples and try to explain it to you. Early in the morning when you get up and when you are about to brush your teeth, you are going to take the paste, and then what you are going to do, in order the paste to come out, you are going to give some effort, right? And let me go for the second example. While cycling, you just can't sit on a cycle and you cannot expect the cycle to move, right? You have to sit on a cycle and then you have to keep your feet on the pedal, and then you are going to give some effort, right? So in these two cases, the work is done by giving an effort. So what is that effort called? I leave the answer to you. What is it? Yes, it's a force. I am very happy to have a very smart students like you. So it's the force. Okay, the force plays a very important role in our daily activities, and in this class we are going to discuss about what is force and how many types of force are present. Okay, let us see some more other examples. For example, if I want to hold that is a marker, we want force. Okay, so without exerting a force, you can't even hold the marker. Okay, if you want to hold the marker, you have to exert the force, and if you want to write, the chapter name, you have to apply force. Okay, so you have to apply force in almost all the things. You can't expect any work, any single small work, without the application of the force. I think only without application of the force you can just dream, right? I hope you can understand. Okay children, so consider the given examples on the board. So first one is pushing a bus. So you all have this experience, right? So whenever the bus fails, the driver asks the students to get down and give a push from backside. So in this example, what you're doing is you're putting an effort away from your body, and that is what we call as push. Okay, the second one is the student or anybody picking up a bag or any luggage. So in this case, what we do is we exert an effort towards ourselves, and we call that as pull. And the third one is riding a bicycle. So in this example, we are applying a force on the pedals using the feet, and you call that as push. Why? Because you are exerting an effort away from your body. And the next is the flag hoisting. So in this case, the person will pull the rope towards himself, and we call it as pull. And the fifth one is pressing a toothpaste, so that we call as a push. And the sixth is drawing water from the well. How many of you have this experience of drawing water? I think most of you don't have that, but in this activity we are exerting a force towards ourselves, and that we call as pull. So these are some of the examples for push and pull, and the remaining four examples that. Okay children, now let us see some more examples. Next is digging the ground using crowbar. So in this example, you are taking a crowbar, and you cannot do that work just by either pushing the crowbar towards the ground or simply pulling. You have to combine both pull and push, then only this digging is done. Okay, and consider the example of erasing of board. So you can observe a teacher, whenever he erases the board, he applies push as well as pull. And next, cutting wood using axe. In this case also the person will apply push as well as pull. And I hope you have heard the train, push-pull train. So why we call the push-pull? Because you have an engine in the front of the train as well as you have the engine behind. Okay, so these two, one of the engine will pull the train and the other engine will push the train. So we call push-pull. Okay, so I hope you have understood all these examples. So in these examples we can see that we are either applying push, or either you are applying pull, or we are applying both push and pull. Okay children, from the examples which you have observed just now, so we can define force in simple terms as push or pull. Okay, so let me write. Force in simple terms is defined as push or pull. Push or pull on an object. This is not a definition according to physics. Okay, so this is a simple, in simple terms we can define force. It is defined as push or pull on an object. Now from the whatever examples we have observed just now, let me write all that example categories under push, pull, and there are also some examples for both push, pull. So let me write for push. So generally you have seen many times that it is written on the doorpost as push, right? Push the door. So when it is written push, you cannot pull it to open it, right? So push the door, and you can see that is pedaling. The pedaling is also comes under the push. Pedaling the cycle. And the students may have this experience that whenever due to some technical, due to some problems with bus stops, then the driver asks the students to get down and push the bus. Okay, push the bus or push the car. So all these are the examples which comes under push. We can have different examples, but there are some examples which I am writing here. Next, let me write some example for push. Okay, so one side if it is written push, the other side we have pull. Pull the door. Okay, and next, if you want to, when you are using straw to drink juice, okay, so that is what is that process called? That is also you are sipping inside. So that is you are pulling, right? So it's also pull. That is. Drinking juice using straw. Okay, and next we can take that is a flag hoisting also. During the flag hoisting, generally we pull it. Okay, so that also comes under this one. Now let me write. So there are some examples where we have to use both. That is push and pull. For example, you can understand, see children, if I want to rub anything, just I have to see this. So as I am bringing here, this is pull and this is push. Pull, push. So just with one, I can either push or pull, I cannot do that one. Okay. So erasing the board. Erasing the board. Next, pounding of rice. Pounding of rice. I hope you can understand all these examples. Okay, and digging. Digging using crowbar. Okay, so these are some of the examples where you can categorize under push, pull, and push pull. Okay, and in simple terms we can define force as push or pull on an object. Okay students, so we have seen how to define force in simple terms. Now let us try to define force in terms of physics. So we want a qualitative description of physics. Okay, so for that let us see some examples. Actually, one of the unique feature about force is that we cannot see the force, but we can see the effects of force. So we are going to discuss about the different effects of force, and after that we are going to define force in terms of these effects. Okay, right. So let me write different effects of force. Effects of force. So here we are going to discuss what is actually force doing. Let us try to see all the examples. Okay. So first of all, let me take an example here. Suppose we have a ball here. Let me say we have a football on the ground and it is stationary. It is stationary. Now suppose if any player comes and applies a force on it, then the ball starts moving. Then the ball starts moving. If you don't apply any force, then the ball will remain stationary. So here, what is that force doing? It is making the ball move from a state of rest or stationary to motion. So we can say the force makes, or the force changes state of rest to motion. The force changes state of rest to motion. Secondly, let me suppose that as a ball is moving, let me say that somebody has applied a force in the opposite direction. Then what happens is that the moving ball will come to rest again. So here the force changes from state of rest to motion, and also the force can also bring the state of motion to rest. So I'll write here, force changes state of motion to rest. Okay. Now third, let me suppose that a ball is moving. The ball is moving. Now, when suppose we are applied the force in the same direction as the body is moving, then what happens to the speed of that ball? The speed of the ball will increase. Or suppose you are applying the force in the opposite direction to the force, then what happens is that the speed of the ball will decrease. So the force can increase the speed of the ball, it can decrease the speed of the ball also. So we can say that the force changes the speed of the ball. Changes the speed of the ball. Speed of the ball. Or we can say speed of the motion. If suppose force is along, the force is along direction of motion, then the speed increases. Suppose force is opposite to direction of motion, then the speed decreases. So on the whole, we can say that the force changes the speed of the motion. Next, let me say that the ball is moving in this direction. So, and somebody is applying a force. So when the ball comes here, somebody is applying a force in this direction. Then what happens is that this ball, instead of going in this direction, the ball starts moving in some other direction. So we can say force changes direction of motion. It changes direction of motion. Next, last. Suppose you take a spring. Okay. So we have a spring. This is the shape of the spring. Suppose when we apply force here, then what happens is that the spring will be compressed. That is, it is undergoing deformation. Or you take a duster, not this kind of duster, okay? So there are some dusters just like sponge. Okay, so if you apply force on a sponge, then what happens is that the sponge will be compressed. So we say that it's a deformation. Okay, so the force causes deformation, or we can say change of shape. Okay, children. So after knowing the effects of force, now let us try to define force in terms of this effect. So let me write the definition here. This is the scientific definition of force. So we can define force as, force is defined as effect which causes change in state of rest to motion, or effect which causes change in state of rest to motion, or stop a moving body, or or which tends to increase, and we can write this also, which tend to increase or change direction or shape of the body. So that is, we have included all the effects of these forces in the definition. The force is defined as an effect which causes change in state of rest to motion, or stop a moving body, or which tends to increase or change direction, increase speed. Let me include here, increase speed or change direction or shape of the body. So this is how we define the force. Now let us try to see what are the different types of forces. Types of force. Types of forces. Let me give two examples here through which we can understand types of forces. So let me say this is a ground. Okay, so two examples I would like to take, and there is a iron nail. Here also iron nail. Now in the first case, let me say this is case A and case B. In the case A, I am trying to lift the iron nail to some distance. I want to lift the iron nail. Okay, so in order to lift the iron nail, what I am going to do? I am going to extend my hand, hold the iron nail, and then lift it like this. I am going to use a force here, that may be a muscular force, okay. But what I have to do, I have to hold it and then I have to lift it. Okay, so that is first case. Coming to the second, what I am going to do is I am going to bring one magnet. I am going to bring one magnet near to the iron nail. Then what happens is that the iron nail will be pulled and it will be attracted to the magnet. And next I can just remove it. So I hope there is a difference here in lifting the iron nails. Here what I have done is the first case, I have held the iron nail and then I have lifted. In the second case, the magnet I have brought it, I didn't touch the iron nail, but still I could lift the iron nail. Okay children, so in this example, I have lifted the iron nail in both the cases. So here I have, how did I lift it? I have just touched it with my hand and then I lifted. So there was a contact, physical contact between my hand and the iron nail. Okay, so this kind of force generally we call as a contact force. Contact force. Why? Because there is a physical contact between my body and this iron nail. Okay, but coming to here, there is no physical contact between the magnet and the iron nail. The force was applied from some distance itself. Therefore, this is called as either non-contact force It can be called as non-contact force or force at distance. Force at a distance. Okay, so in this way we have two types of forces, that is contact forces and force at a distance or non-contact force. So I'm going to write contact forces here. Contact forces and force at distance. Force at a distance. Okay, let us see this contact forces. The first example is muscular force, as we have seen the example. Muscular force. Wherever you apply the muscular force, you have to have a physical contact with the objects, and then we can see the effect of the force, right? So it comes under the contact force. The second is frictional force. Frictional force. So whenever, suppose a ball, if you take a football, the football is moving in this direction. When the football is rolling on the ground, we can see that after some time it comes to stop. Why it comes to stop? Because a frictional force is developed between the ball and the ground here, and that is always having a contact. So the frictional force also comes under the contact force. Next, normal force. Normal force. In detail we are going to discuss about all these forces in the next class. Now just I am going to give definitions of these types of forces. Now coming to the normal force, whenever an object is present on any surface, let me say this is one table and there is a body of the table. So definitely one force is acting in the downward direction, that is the weight of that object. Now this surface is acting one force in the upward direction, that is what we call as a normal force. So that is also called as a contact force. Why? Because there is a contact here. Okay, suppose it is hanging, it is just in the air, it is just in the air, then only one force is acting, that is weight, and there is no normal force. Okay, I hope you understood. And last one is tension. Tension force. Okay, suppose there is a rigid surface here and there is a string and there is a ball. The weight of the ball is acting downwards, but there is also force which is present in the string, that is what we call as a tension. Okay, right. Now let us see the force at distance. The first example, that is in the example we have seen, that was a magnetic force. Magnetic force. So these forces are acting from a long distance. Okay, the second one, gravitational force. Gravitational force. And the third is electrostatic force. Electrostatic force. The forces that are present between the two protons, between two electrons, or protons and electrons, that is we can see in the electrostatic force. Okay, so generally coming to the contact forces, what are the contact forces? The contact forces are the forces which are developed when there is a physical contact between two interacting bodies. And the force at distance, these are the forces which are developed when there is no physical contact between the two interacting bodies. So this is about the contact forces and force at distance. In detail we are going to study about all these types of forces in the next class.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.